Thank you for this morning. You know what I'm talking about, bro. Shout out to your mom as well. For everybody that is tuning into the live, thank you so much for being here. Unfortunately, we did get a ban on the main account for a singular week for hate speech and harassment. So we need to be a little bit nicer to the Trump supporters that, will be joining our streams and whatnot. And honestly, I should have known this. I'll take the ban. It is what it is. I violated the TOS. I've been a menace to some of these Trump supporters. Let me tell you. I've definitely been kinder in the past, and as of recently, I've kind of been letting it slide a little bit. I've been quite the meanie to a couple of these people. Now, that's not to say that they don't deserve it. It's just to say that I do deserve the ban because that is a violation of TikTok terms of service, regardless if they deserve it or not. But if you are a part of the very first 1,000 people tuning into the live stream, you guys make sure that you're helping me out here by double tapping on that phone screen. Let's try to get up to 100,000 likes. You could also help us out by sharing out this live with a handful of friends. This is the first time that we've been live on this account in quite a while, so it may take a while to get this live to send out across that For You page, guys. So if you would really help me out by double tapping, by spamming the shares, spamming the comment section, spamming the engagement, so we could shoot out and across that For You page to draw as many of the crazy Magas in here as possible. That would be great. Now, without any further ado, we are going to go ahead and start loading people up. So if you find yourself in the guest requests, make sure that means that you are at least 18 years old, you are from America, and you support Donald J. Trump. So, yeah, let's go and get that very first guest of the day up here. Please don't troll if you happen to be in the queue for people in here that are supporters, not MAGA account. This live is only really going to reach followers today. Chris, thank you for the future encounter. So please don't troll, or else we will be dealing with trolls all day long. What is going on? GoArmy.com. Are you MAGA? Do you support Trump?
I am MAGA, and I support Trump.
Okay, how old are you?
I'm 28.
All right, why don't you take it away? Tell us why you support Trump. And Chris, thank you for the racing helmet.
I really love what Trump's doing with the illegal immigrants. I think he should go a step further than what he already is. I think they're not getting them out fast enough. And I... Together we are
For everybody tuning in on the YouTube live stream, I understand that we just started for the day, but we're going to have to hold off that intro for another minute or so because over on the TikTok stream, we just had Christian drop a TikTok universe. And for those of you that don't know what a TikTok universe is, it is the single-handedly largest gift that you can receive on the platform. So Mr. Christian, thank you so much for the love, bro. Jesus Christ. Can we please have everybody that is tuning into the live, both on TikTok and on YouTube, spam some W Christians in those live chats. Christian, that is so incredibly kind of you, bro. I really appreciate you for your kindness and your continued generosity. I really hope that you're doing all right, man. And very seriously, thank you for the love. Everybody, please show some love to Christian down below in that chat for their insane generosity. While we're starting off that first stream, seriously, guys, let's, as I already said, get some W Christians down below. Man, I really do appreciate it. That is nuts. But, go ahead, Go Army. I apologize for keeping you waiting. Take it away. Tell us why you support Trump.
Oh, yeah, I support the deportation of illegal immigrants. I don't think the Trump administration or ICE is, doing it in the most forceful way that I would like to see. And I also support Donald Trump's decision, whatever he makes on Iran. Me personally, I think they should have been wiped off the map long ago.
I have a question. How do you feel like Israel got nuked?
Oh, I don't like Israel either.
Oh, are you an American first groper?
No.
Okay. Well, I mean, listen, I want to talk about mass deportation, but before we do that, we got to talk about what you just said about Iran. I think only like despicable POSs would say that a bunch of innocent civilians deserve to die, and that's what you just said.
They wouldn't be innocent in my eyes. They're
So
all
there's not a single innocent person in Iran, even like the
no,
young children.
absolutely
They're
not.
not. They're
If
not
you're not,
innocent.
no, absolutely not. If you're not going to afford that same privilege to people that you say are MAGA, why should we offer it to Muslims and the regime that's in power over there?
Okay, so you just said if I'm not going to afford the same privilege to MAGA, why should you offer it to literal babies? So I actually don't think that we should genocide all Trump supporters in America the way that you think we should genocide everybody from Iran. And you're saying that the ultimate reason you'd support that genocide is because they're Muslims. So are you kind of like Hitler? Like then? Because Hitler wanted to kill everybody that's Jewish, you want to kill everybody that's Muslim?
No, I'd say I'm worse than Hitler.
Oh, okay.
I
Yeah.
don't think Hitler went far enough.
Oh, you don't think that Hitler went far enough?
No.
Okay. Yeah, can I be honest with you, bro?
Yeah, what's up?
Yeah, I would love to know what your full name is and where you live.
My name is Leonard Mers, and I live in Jacksonville, Florida.
What did you say your name was?
Leonard Mers, and I live in Jacksonville, Florida.
Leonard. How do you spell that last name?
MERZ.
Okay. What do you do for work, Leonard?
What do I do for work? I'm a welder.
Welder. Can you tell us who your employer is?
Oh, absolutely not. That's all you need to know is that I'm a welder.
How do you feel about
Blue collar worker.
how do you feel about if your employer were to figure out that you're supposedly worse than Hitler and you just like genocide? What do you think your employer would do to you? Do you think they'd fire you?
Majority of my work, I'm self-employed. I'm an independent contractor, so I wouldn't really care.
No, you wouldn't really care. Okay, well, Leonard, I don't like award time on my live streams to clown shows like you. But yeah,
Clam
man,
shows?
yeah, absolutely.
What's a clam show?
A clown show, that's you.
Why am I a clown?
Yeah, because you want to genocide everybody that is Muslim, and you don't think that Hitler went far enough.
Well, not just the Muslims, the Jews as well. I mean, look at how long they've been in like war.
All right, we're gonna move on to the next guest. Yeah, that guy just thinks we should genocide everybody that's Muslim or Jewish. All right, well, we're not gonna afford that any of our time, and I bet everybody watching could disagree. Could agree with me. I bet everybody watching could agree. I mean, right or left, everybody watching could probably agree that we shouldn't afford him any of our time. What's going on, Reese? Do you support Trump?
I love you, Dean. I love you.
I appreciate you for that love, Reese, but please make sure that you're only hopping in that queue if you support Trump. Jordan, thank you so much for the $20 over on YouTube Super Chat. Jordan says, Dean, thank you for everything that you do. I watch you every day, and your streams are one of the only things keeping me sane in these crazy times. I appreciate you for the love, Jordan. Guys, show some love to Jordan down below in that chat, as well as Jim and I with the $10. Thank you. What's going on? Aridas, do you support Trump?
Yeah, yes, sir.
You do. How old are you?
18.
18. What year are you born in?
2007, January.
And how do I pronounce your name?
Aridas.
Aridas. Thank you so much. Okay.
West Ham are massive everywhere they go.
All right, just came up here to sing. So we're going to move on to the next guest at this point in time. And also for everybody asking why we're not on our main TikTok account, that's because it got banned. It got banned for a week. So we're going to be on here for the next 7 days. Make sure you're dropping that follow and sharing this account around with your friends. What's going on, Monts? Do you support Trump?
Of course not.
All right. So we're going to go ahead and go over the rules for the queue once again. So this live is, for the most part, going to be found by more supporters than disagreeers. And for that reason, I am going to be putting a massive preface on just trying to find people to debate that support Trump. So if you do come up here and you are liberal, I unfortunately today I'm going to hold a very firm red line and I'm going to ban you. And keep in mind that that's not necessarily something that I want to do, but it's just a rule that I'm going to have to hold in order to sufficiently disincentivize trolls coming up here. Because if we don't, we'll just be talking to trolls and liberals all day long because of the fact that we're on the alt account and there's not going to be as many people in here, and this stream is going to disproportionately be sending out to people that already follow me, part of the fan base, or just support liberals. So we are going to be holding that very firm red line today, very firm red line. Let's go and get that next guest up in here. It looks like Benjamin's taken off. So we got Dav loading into the stream. And seriously, once again, if you happen to be a part of the first 4.7 thousand people tuning in, guys, make sure that you're double tapping. What is going on? Do you support Trump? Dav, we're going to go to give you a countdown from 5 here.
You are a piece of shit, dude.
I'm a piece of shit. I have a feeling you're gonna leave, like right now, right? You're gonna leave. You're gonna run away. So because you're a beta male. Is that what you're gonna do?
You just are a piece of shit.
Okay. Why do you
and
think
your
I'm
boy.
sure? Why do you think I'm a piece of shit? Sure. Explain it. I don't think that you're gonna explain it. I do just think you're gonna leave, but I'll ask anyways. Why do you think I'm a piece of shit?
You don't like our president, that's why.
Oh, I don't like Trump. Therefore, I'm a POS. So why does not liking
Yeah.
Trump make you a POS? And now he's leaving. See how predictable these people are? Unreal. See, I mean, truly, Maga is so predictable, everybody. Maga is so predictable. I mean, I literally told him straight to his face exactly what he would do twice, and he still decided to do it. Let's go to move on to the next guest, everybody. We are in that queue. Once again, make sure that means that we support Trump, and we're ready and willing to come up here and have a debate. What is going on, Kojo? Do you support Trump?
All good, yeah.
What's that?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, what time is it? All right, you're not from America, so we are going to ban you. Andrew, thank you so much for the $10 over on PayPal. That's incredibly kind. Andrew says, "I'm sorry you get banned." It just kind of happens. It just kind of happens sometimes. I don't really stress about it too much. It's just something that happens. What's going on, Richard? Do you support Trump?
I do. Good afternoon. How are you?
I am doing all right. For everybody on TikTok, can you guys hear Richard? He isn't popping up on the screen, but if you guys could hear him, we could have a conversation nonetheless. So let me know right now if you could hear Richard, everybody. Let me know right now if you could hear Richard. Awesome, you can. So, Richard, why don't you take it away? Tell us why you support the man, the myth, failure, Donald J. Trump.
Absolutely. So I agree with you. I didn't vote for the man's character, but I did vote for his economic policy.
Oh, economic reform. Well, he seems to be really bad for the economy. Can you highlight a way for us that he's good?
Sure. So if you look at some of the numbers that just came out from the Fed, we're trending in the right direction. The big, beautiful bill, while the CRB did score it to be adding to the deficit, one of the numbers that I was actually concerned with in their model was holding GDP static at 1.6%. So I think by cutting some of the spending in mandatory versus discretionary spending,
Can I ask you about your
we're going to
first
get
claim?
closer. Sure.
So you said that the Fed is telling us that there's a good projection. What numbers are looking good?
When Jerome Powell came out yesterday, he said he wasn't going to be cutting interest rates quite yet because he wanted to see how tariffs play out. I'm not as informed on tariffs, and it's kind of a wait to be seen. So I think it was a good decision. But he did highlight that unemployment, that inflation, that other metrics that they're looking at were trending in the right direction.
Okay. So what has Donald Trump done so far in his term that's been good for the unemployment rate?
So far, that it's been good for the unemployment. There's not been much policy that he's written yet, and that's taken to affect those numbers.
Okay. So then why do you attribute it to him?
I don't necessarily attribute it to him. I'm saying that
You did. I asked you why you think he's good for the economy, and then you said the Fed is indicating macroeconomic variables that are trending in positive directions, meaning that you attribute those positive trends to the efficacy of his presidency and specifically how good he is for the economy.
they're yet to be seen. Some of the things that are being put in place, I think, will grow the overall GDP. I hope that they extend the TJCA tax cuts.
Now you're
and then
walking
that pulling
back.
that.
Now you're walking back your first claim.
I'm willing to have an intellectual conversation, be challenged, and be corrected. I enjoy your live stream, so please go ahead.
So just to clarify, you now are walking back the first claim that you made, that Donald Trump has already demonstrated his efficacy for the American economy by onsetting positive trends, by lowering the unemployment rate and lowering inflation, correct?
That is not exactly what I said. You asked me about the Fed chairman's statements from the other day, and I said that it wasn't entirely factual because he pointed to key indicators that were working well. I said that the policies and statements that are being put out by Scott Bessent are trending in the right way, and we might actually have a chance. The big, beautiful bill are going to be things. I'm trying to. I'm saying it's yet to be seen. That things need to play out. Tariff policy and the big, beautiful bill might give us a chance.
Because your first claim was that it's already been seen. So once again, I asked you why you think Donald Trump is good for the economy. You told me two things. The first thing
I said his economic policies that are being put forward are going to give us a chance to have a balanced budget.
So you told me two things. The first thing that you told me was that, well, we already see positive trends as being reported by the feds in the context of unemployment rate and inflation. And then the second thing that you told me was that you support his economic policy that he set forth, such as the BBB. So
I didn't contribute those factors to Trump. I said that the positive numbers I said the positive numbers from May are showing indications that we are going to have a chance for a balanced budget.
You attributed that to Trump because I asked you why you think Donald Trump is good for the economy, and your response was to point out those positive trends. Pointing out those positive trends in response to the question, why do you think Donald Trump is good for the American economy, is attributing those positive trends to Trump. And if you're going to attribute those positive trends to Trump, you'll have to explain to me what Donald Trump did to cause the positive trends.
It is too early to be seen of the policies that he's put in place to be reflected in the numbers. But if the tariffs do work and we are going to extend the TJCA tax cuts and pass the big, beautiful bill, we have a chance to balance the budget for the first time since 2001.
The BBB will balance the budget?
It's not going to be perfect. It actually is going to, I think the CRB's numbers of 4 point, keep me intellectually honest here, Dean. I think they said 4.8.
Yeah, around 4
I think
to 5
that number's
trillion.
Yeah, I think that number's closer probably to $1 trillion.
Okay. Well, I mean, hey, man, I think I'm going to trust the CBO and the CRBF when they say $4 to $5 trillion. But even if you say that you don't trust the CBO or the CRBF and you think it's going to cost closer to $1 trillion, that is still half of all of the spending that the Biden-Harris administration signed into law and non-COVID related expenditures in the last 4 years and one bill in the first 150 days in office.
So are we talking in comparisons on who ran a larger deficit between the Biden and Harris and Trump administration?
Yeah. So, I mean, you said it's closer to $1 trillion. That's not what's being reported.
I said
by
8
financial
trillion.
Institutions. Oh,
so
you didn't say $1 trillion. You said 8?
No, one singular.
Yes. Okay. So that's what I was saying. Maybe you misinterpreted me.
And then you also made a claim about the CBO. It's not that I don't distrust the CBO. It's that when they put the model forward, they used a static number for GDP growth. That's what I wanted to point out.
Well, GDP growth isn't concerned when we're trying to calculate how much it's going to add to the debt.
Absolutely it is, because it takes in more revenue, more taxable income.
Okay, so, well, that would be a second claim. The first claim is how much it's going to add to the debt.
No, Dean. Let's be intellectually honest here.
Why are you interrupting
the
me?
GDP number in the model
don't appreciate the fact
directly
that
affects.
That's not nice. Are you going to let me finish my claim?
Please.
So any claim about GDP growth onset by the bill would be secondary to the claim of how much it would add to the debt. If you want to retort the fact that it would add $4 to $5 trillion to the debt by saying it would increase the GDP as well, meaning that we'd experience more government revenue, so we'd be getting an ROI off of the expenditure, that's fine. However, that is a secondary claim that would be used to retort the original claim of how much it would add to the debt. Right? And now that's a claim that you can make in response to my claim that it's expected to add $4 to $5 trillion. So you could say, well, Dean, it's going to expedite the GDP growth by X, Y, and Z amount. Thereby, we will see a return via government revenue that will account for the $4 to $5 trillion in the next 10 years. But I do want to clarify, the government intakes around 30% of what our GDP is in government revenue on a year-by-year basis, meaning that if it's going to add $4 to $5 trillion to the debt in the next 10 years, it would have to add over $15 trillion to the American GDP in the next 10 years in order for us to break even. So do you think that the BBB is going to add $15 trillion to the GDP in the next 10 years?
No, but
right. Then it's, how much is it going to add? Because we know that the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act only added around $20 through $40 billion to the GDP per year, according to a study done by 2 Harvard economists, one right-leaning and one left-leaning. And
there's others contradictory reports on that, and saying that the TJCA extension will add about 1 to 1.5% growth in GDP, which would actually be about $8 to $9 billion. Trillion.
Okay, so now your claim is that basically, by the way, I haven't seen these reports, and that's not a counter report because I'm talking about when it was originally signed into law, not their revival with the BBB. But assuming that the BBB, because we're just going to accept what you just said for face value, assuming that the BBB will add $8 to $9 trillion to our GDP in the next 10 years, okay, and we typically yield around 30% of that growth in additional government revenue, this still is accounting for the totality of the to the total of the $15 trillion added to the debt in the next 10 years, right?
Right. I didn't say that it was going to be...
Actually, I'm sorry. I'm off. It's going to be 50. It'd have to be... Okay. No. I'm sorry. I'm way off. Let's see here, because it'd add. What is that? No, I was
It'd be
on.
20.
I was on.
Yeah, you're on. Yeah, you're right. So, like I said,
So
this
overall, it's
is
still going to be
it's
putting
not
us in a lot of debt.
it's a but. So what? Going back to the top of the question on why I supported Trump, I believe we were presented with two bad choices with someone like myself. This is the single biggest issue that I vote for. And when you compare who added more to the deficit and who I believed would add more to the deficit, it became clear to me that Trump was the right option.
Okay, well, historically, that's not true. He added twice as much to our debt in his first term compared to Biden and Harris's term, as well as his policy is more expensive in this second term compared to what Kamala Harris's would have been, as well as when we consider the other policy that he runs on. I think that the inevitable conclusion becomes clear. If your primary concern is the American economy, right now Donald Trump would be the last person you'd support due to his mass deportation. Could I tell you why?
So can I address some of your claims first?
That was the only claim that I
Trump was, well, the claim that you made, I don't want to get into immigration right now. You said that the Biden-Harris administration
immigration is
added
directly
less.
related. Yeah, I did. You can respond to that, but I'd like to clarify that you should be willing to have a conversation with me about immigration, because this immigration policy and reform has a direct negative impact on the American economy. And you just said that your single biggest issue was the American economy.
And Dean, I'm not agreeing with the immigration policy of the Trump administration. We can get in, and probably you can educate me on that, because that is something I'm not as educated on.
Right.
But I wanted to make a claim.
I'll explain to you why that makes him a total net negative, given your position so far.
Okay. So if we can table that, I want to address and get your opinion on this one thing. So if you do pull the CRFB reports, and keep me honest here, the CRFB graded the Trump first administration, due to CV-19 spending and some other policies I didn't agree with, 8.8 trillion was added to the deficit. Yes. CRFB graded that the Biden-Harris administration added 4.3 trillion.
4.6.
Now, it was 4.6. Okay. I believe that number is low, and where I'm getting my information is the budget committee. Now, granted, it's made up of mainly conservative Republicans, but they added some facts here that I thought were very interesting. The CRFB failed to put in some of the costly executive actions, like ending Medicaid work requirements, thrifty food plan overhaul, government contractor rule, new public charge rule, some expansion of Obamacare, some student loan repayment pauses. And when they calculate all of that, it led to 11.6 trillion. So then as a voter on a single issue, I had to take those things into account, looked at the delta, looked at some of the plans and people that Trump was going to be putting in place, and went that direction.
So you're telling me that apparently the largest tax cuts in American history, the BBB, 831 pages long, will only cost $4 trillion over the next 10 years, but apparently expanding work credits for federal workers on Medicaid will cost nearly $7 trillion. That's why I can't trust the CBO. And I mean, I think that you said it yourself. The CBO is not a nonpartisan or bipartisan committee of Congress. They are headed and ran by conservatives for conservatives, right?
So they didn't grade just Medicaid work requirement expansion but when you total all the executive actions, that's what got to 7 trillion. Not just that one thing. I listed off several things that were not accounted for in the CRFB's grade of the Biden and Harris administration's administer of debt. And then you also said, okay,
so go through
Trump
them.
is going to add.
Go through them individually.
Okay. Individually. Ending Medicaid work requirements when January 2021 cost $3 billion. Implemented an executive order that empowered. We don't need to get into that. Okay. That was $3 billion.
$3 billion. Okay, that's 0.0001%. Cool.
Right. Thrifty food plan overhaul, $300 billion.
What is it called?
The Thrifty Food Plan Overhaul. SNAP benefits.
Okay, so the USDA reevaluated the Thrifty Food Plan. Go ahead.
The government contractor rule, another $3 billion. The new public charge rule, $26 billion.
26 bill. Okay, so we're still
Obamacare expansion, $34 billion.
Very low. Okay. I mean, I'm just going to basically accept all these because these are all very small.
Student loan repayment pause, $165 billion. The SAVE plan, $260 billion. The Medicaid eligibility rule, $164 billion. The student loan bailout, 132 billion, differing from the pause. Nursing home minimum staffing rule, 22 billion.
So
New multi-pollutant
actually-
emission standards,
could I actually
224 billion.
Could I actually point this
Sure.
one out? So the first
Sure,
thing that you
sure.
said there was a thrifty food plan. I mean, I just looked up thrifty food plan USDA, went to their website, and it looks like this overhaul was directed by Congress in 2018 via the
Not
Farm
necessarily.
Bill.
No.
That's
it
what the
was
USDA
implemented-
says.
Okay. No, it was implemented in 2018, but then let's go look at the numbers a little bit. It was expanded upon by 23% in August in 2021.
That's when it was
by
effective.
Biden and Harris. But it was expanded by 23% in overall spending. You have to account for the number that Biden and Harris put into place to expand a program. Granted, that was on the books, but they have to account for that money.
So when I read off of the USDA website, I see no allocation of an expansion in 2021. I only see a program that begun to be effective in 2021 that was directed to be signed in by Congress in 2018 under the Farm Bill. So I mean,
I've
where
found
are you
two
reading
different
about an
sources.
expansion?
Okay, if you go to budget.house.gov/press release, you will find this report. Budget.house.gov. And then it's the fact check alert debunking the CRFB's analysis of Trump and Biden impacts on the national debt.
You're just re-referencing me back to the Republican committee. So I mean, who should I trust more? What the incredibly partisan conservative Republican committee says about the thrifty food plan, or what the USDA, who's in charge of the thrifty food plan, says?
There's multiple sources. I can go and pull those. But I mean, we can get bogged down into that. But I mean, it is here.
That's what you want. You want to get bogged down into it. I'll do it. Right? I mean, I would honestly prefer to have a conversation with you about how Donald Trump's immigration policy seemingly contradicts your goals here. But I mean, if you want to get bogged down in these specifics, we could do it. Right? And like seemingly, like we've already like pointed out like one marker of unreliability on behest of the CBO and their reports and critiques of the CRBF. I mean, like the first one was the fact that they pointed out an expansion of funding under the thrifty food plan in accordance with the USDA. But then even the USDA
Well, then let me ask you
this
this.
was a direction of Congress in 2018.
So let me ask you this then. Is it not true that the SNAP program from 2019 to 2024 has increased over 40%?
I hope that the SNAP program has increed. Now, what did the
Well,
Biden
Dean,
administration
I have a
do
hard,
to make it increase?
a lot of times.
Do you mind if I ask you? I'm just curious. What policy did they pass to increase it? Like, I'm just genuinely curious.
I do not know the exact policy, but I look at the numbers and see from 2019 to 2024, that program, which is a mandatory spending, increased 40%. And I just don't think that's a relative increase that is necessary. And Dean, I think a lot of times Republicans and supporters. Hold on. Let me finish one claim.
How do you know that relative increase was directed by the by the policy of Biden and Harris compared to some relative increase by year?
They were in charge. Well, 40% seems pretty.
So you're just saying that it happened under their administration, therefore they caused it?
Dean,
I want to see a
40% seems pretty. 40% seems pretty substantial in their leadership. So
sure, tell me what they did to cause it. That's all.
The Democrat Party was in control at that time, and they should stop this. So here's my point.
So then you'd be able to point out like a bill that they passed, because we're talking about debt signed into law, right? That was my original claim. How much debt did the presidency sign into law? Show me where they signed this debt into law and expanded the food stamp program. This was just a genuine good faith question, and you don't have an answer.
So you made a claim that you love the increase of it. And we get accused on the right a lot that we do not have a heart for people that are worse off than ourselves. And that's just not true. What I look at is that this is not sustainable for the long future. Since we haven't run a surplus since 2001.
I thought that we were debating the debt they signed into law. Now we're not.
Yeah, this is so. I'll pose the question back to you. Do you think from 2019 to 2024, a 40% increase in SNAP benefits is appropriate, as well as a 30 and change increase in Medicaid spending is appropriate?
We could talk about if the expenditure is appropriate after we finish the original conversation that you started, by the way.
You run from
great.
things that the administration.
Let me know
See,
when I
you
can
do the
finish
same
speaking.
thing. You do the same thing to guests that I've seen you come up here. Once
I
you
would love to finish
have
being
an
able to speak.
once you have an uncomfortable situation, you run from it.
Okay, well, I'm
What?
not, and I could explain to you how, but you don't want me to be able to explain. That's why you interrupted
Please.
me during my explanation.
No, please go ahead.
Because we were having a conversation about how much debt the administration signed into law in accordance with the numbers as reported by CRBF and the CBO, and you're telling me that the CBO had critiques of the CRBF reported expenditure, and we were able to talk about two of those critiques so far. The first critique relating to a plan as introduced by the USDA. I pointed out that plan was directed by Congress under Trump's first term. We moved on to the second critique that the CBO had that you upheld, relating to a 40% increase in food stamp benefits. And then I just simply asked you, since we were having a conversation about how much debt the presidency signed into law respectively, what policy or memorandum EO did the Biden-Harris administration pass that led to this 40% increase in the last 5 years? And instead of answering that question, you then, with very subtle rhetorical sleight of hand, redictated the conversation to if I think that change is appropriate, regardless if that change was made by the Biden-Harris administration. However, right, a conversation about if I think that change in spending is appropriate is completely different than the conversation that we're having related to this being debt signed into law by the Biden-Harris administration to authenticate the critiques as granted by the CBO of the original reports from the CRBF. And I really don't appreciate you painting this as me running from an uncomfortable conversation. At the end of the day, I think the uncomfortable conversation was you defending the CBO's critiques of the CRBF's reporting of debt signed into law, and you actually are now trying to use that rhetorical sleight of hand to run away from that. Okay, all right, but I don't really want to get into
go
the
back
meta.
to the.
I don't.
I've,
One
I've
second.
found,
One
I've
second.
found
One
that
second.
no, no,
One
no,
second.
you've
One second,
talked.
Robert.
You just talked.
No, don't interrupt me.
Richard.
I'm not done speaking, Robert.
It's Richard.
Okay, Richard, Robert, whatever the hell. I'm not done speaking. So I want you to answer my good faith question, because keep in mind, this was just a good faith question that I had. I was just curious. Yeah. What piece of paper did Biden put a signature on to sign this debt into law?
So then I'm just looking it up now, and I found where the Thrifty Food Plan was reevaluated by the Biden and Harris administration. The result, it was in a 21% increase in the maximum SNAP benefits for a single family of four, the largest permanent increase in the program's history. They also put temporary pandemic increases on SNAP, 15% in December in 2020 through September of 2021. This amounted to about $28 extra per person per month. They increased access to online purchasing, they supported for states, and they addressed emergency allocatements, and they extended the pandemic BEPT. So your claim that you couldn't find anything and that this was just completely unfactual has been proven once again that's untrue.
Okay, great. Well, the issue with that critique is its reevaluation was by whom?
The Biden and Harris administration. August of 2021, like I said, at the very top.
The U.S. Department of Agriculture. Okay? And once again, when we're having
who appoints the leaders of the U.S. Department of Agriculture?
So this is the difference between the claim that you're making and the claim that I made. I claimed that Biden had signed significantly less debt into law compared to Trump. That's going to be looking at the policies that are passed through Congress then signed into law, not the reoccurring expenditure and the reevaluations done by proximate agencies such as the U.S. Department of Agriculture. Now, if you want to baselessly associate this with debt signed into law by Biden, I don't care, because at the end of the day, it's a very minuscule amount of money. Spending a couple $1 billion to increase
it's $7 trillion.
$7 trillion? That was the reevaluation of the supplement to the Thrifty Food Plan?
No. That's not what I said. When you add all the things that I've been trying to list off.
So then how much was it for the Thrifty Food Plan? Because that's what I'm talking about.
I said at the very top of this, the Thrifty Food Plan accounted for, let me pull up once again.
Is he gone?
No, I'm here. I'm sorry. $300 billion.
Yeah, exactly. $300 billion. So I'd listen.
These things add up.
I would really appreciate it if you could allow me to finish. Thank you so much, Richard. I appreciate that. So debt signed into law by Biden is going to be congressional policy, or it's going to be executive orders signed into law. A reevaluation done of a plan by the U.S. Department of Agriculture isn't necessarily debt signed into law by Biden, because that's not an update of a new law. That is not a law signed into effect. That is going to be a reevaluation of a plan set forth by a department and proximate to our federal government to increase benefits. And these reevaluations are done on a reoccurring basis. And because these reevaluations are done on a reoccurring basis, this is also going to be ignored by the CRBF as it relates to all reevaluations done under Trump's first 4 years, included those onset under the directive of the Farm Bill. So that's why the CRBF is going to exclude that. And the critique of the CBO explicitly of the Biden-Harris expenditure, I would argue, is likely ignoring the same reevaluations of reoccurring expenditure under Donald Trump's first term. But I have a question for you. Because
Well,
you seem
number
to be
one,
very,
it's the CR. Number one is the CRFB, and number two, let me ask you the question: why does it matter, in your opinion? To me, debt is debt. So why does it need to be enacted by law for you to care about leadership appointments that the Biden administration made that had made these reevaluation decisions?
Okay, yeah, because that's going to be reoccurring. The reevaluated decisions, insofar as what our expenditure is on things such as food stamps, are going to be reoccurring and always happening. Like I'd bet you every dollar in my bank account that we saw similar reevaluations or a reevaluation at all under Donald Trump's first term. But okay, now that I answered your question,
I've looked
I'm
it
going to
up.
ask you a
Okay.
question. Now that
Okay.
you've asked me a question, I'm going to ask you a question. If you really care about debt, if you really care about the performance of the American economy, Donald Trump would be the last president you would ever support because of how expensive his mass deportation is for America. According to the Center on American Progress, it's estimated that the total contribution of all undocumented immigrants, rather it be their direct contribution to the GDP or the surplus productivity that our producers would enjoy predicated on their participation in the workforce, is anywhere from $1.1 to $1.7 trillion per year. And the Center for American Progress estimated in a report done in 2020, don't worry, I've accounted for today's GDP, that if we were to deport every undocumented immigrant tomorrow, our GDP would fall by anywhere from 4.2 to 5.8%, or that 1.1 trillion through 1.7 trillion dollar figure. Right? So that's like a huge hit to the GDP. And then when we look at, I mean, like the reoccurring costs, if we were to deport every single undocumented immigrant in America tomorrow, that same agency would report that that would cost over $300 billion. Or if we were to deport 1 million immigrants for 10 years, it would cost on average $88 million per year. $88 billion per year, totaling to close to $1 trillion over the next 10 years, as well as if we were to account for what they pay in taxes, which is $100 billion per year, that'd be another $1 trillion over the course of the next 10 years. So in total, the GDP would fall by anywhere from $1.1 trillion through $1.7 trillion per year, and it would cost close to $2 trillion over the next 10 years. So because of these incredibly negative economic outcomes that are observed in the American economy as a result of a mass deportation, Donald Trump would be the last president you'd ever support.
Okay, lot to unpack there. There was a couple of claims that were made at the top when I was listening. You said that, oh, $1 trillion, not a big deal. So we're talking about $1 trillion. Now, I want to say at the top of this, I do not necessarily agree with the immigration policies that's being conducted, and you're actually seeing Donald Trump walk back from it. I
Yeah, he
believe
walked
that
back, but then he walked back
Oh.
the walk back. Fun fact. So they're back to deporting individuals that work in hospitality, hotels, and service sectors.
That's
Yeah.
right. That's right. And I agree with that. And I want to point out that I believe it was a political thing. I believe that we do have a racist history in our country that I don't stand for. And I think Steve Bannon is one of the most evil men on the planet, and that he pushed him to saying, we got to get everybody out. I'm hoping some more cooler heads prevail in the administration. And we're seeing that kind of walk back and walk back the walk back, as you had mentioned.
Right.
As far as the total cost of illegal immigration, those are projections as well. We really don't know. The data on illegal immigration is very, very poor. The data on tax collection is very, very poor. So those numbers that I see in the sites that you said, I don't know what to make of them. They're trying their best, but it's on poor data.
Okay. Why is it poor data?
We don't really know even how many people are across our southern border
And why does
or
this mean that
here illegally.
and why does this mean that the IRS doesn't know that undocumented immigrants pay close to $100 billion per year in taxes via IETINs on W-2s? I actually don't think it's too complex to conclude who's going to be working on a work visa through DACA, or who's paying on an ITIN, not a social security number, because they don't have a social security number as a W-2 employee. I don't
So
think
you're
that's
correct. You're correct.
I don't really think that's going to be unreliable data.
I'm not saying that, but then you've got to look at because we don't know how many people are here, are we losing net because of the social benefits that are being passed out or going to the hospital or different things like that? So yes, why you say that, and I agree with you, the IRS has collected $100 billion. Do you actually think that it doesn't cost us more money to have those people in our country? Now, I have a heart and I don't want to deport everybody.
That's also not hard data. That's also not hard data to reconcile. If somebody goes to an emergency room and they don't have any form of health care, and inevitably Medicaid ends up cutting the bill because of that fact, as well as they don't have a social security number to give to the hospital because they're not a citizen, okay, well, that's also pretty reliable data. And then even about social safety nets. I mean, undocumented immigrants don't qualify for any federal social benefits outside of what Medicare.
No federal, but there's a lot of state, and then the federal flows to the state.
If you'd allow me to finish, they don't qualify for any federal benefits outside of what Medicare expenses for access to emergency services via Humanitarian Act passed in 2015 under Obama's second term. And then as it relates to state benefits, well, the state benefits that undocumented immigrants can receive are designed for them with intention, and the state knows exactly who's collecting those benefits and exactly what that total number would be. So I don't think that like the economic data is poor or unreliable at all. I think that the only data that I would agree with you is unreliable is maybe how many undocumented immigrants there are in the country. But as soon as we start like moving on from that first assumption and we move on to, well, how many of them are in the labor force? How much do they pay in taxes? What kind of benefits do they receive? That's when the data becomes incredibly reliable.
There was one point, and I'm actually just asking here, I do not know, on the unreliable data around the cost of illegal immigration. Is the claim that you are not allowed to ask citizenship status for enrolling a kid in a public school true or false? I've heard both sides.
I don't know. I'm not aware.
Yeah,
You'd have to have somebody else.
Yeah, that cost would add up. So those are things I'm pointing out.
Education for the children of undocumented immigrants is the largest cost that you could contribute to undocumented immigrants. However, I feel like this claim is misinterpreted by a lot of people on the right because one, a lot of the children of undocumented immigrants are natural U.S.-born citizens that are born in the country. Now, like, if you agree with that, I don't need to offer you further explanation.
Yeah.
But like the further explanation there would be that the labor force participation rate for undocumented immigrants is significantly higher than citizens because of their age demographic. So you agree
with that too.
That a lot of the younger children are citizens. So those are not categorized as an expense for undocumented immigrants. And then what is expensed on the very few children in our public educational systems that are undocumented immigrants? Well, guess what? That's gonna yield an ROI. I would love to spend money on any child in this country, regardless if they're a citizen, a resident, or an undocumented immigrant that's getting an education, because of the long-term ROI that yields for the American economy, right?
I don't disagree. I made the claim that I made the point just to say where it could be in the data where some of the total cost of illegal immigration isn't properly calculated. Now, I'm not saying that we shouldn't educate these children. I'm just trying to point out some scenarios where it is very hard to put a number to the net benefits of illegal immigration if they exist.
So it does. So it becomes really hard when we're talking about their children. And that's where conservatives run wild, is because what the conservatives do, and I'm not just talking out of my ass here, I'm talking about a report that came from the House Republicans on January 21st, the day of Trump's inauguration, saying that undocumented immigrants cost us $155 billion per year. And what they included in that is the educational costs of all the children of undocumented immigrants with very liberal estimates, regardless if they were citizens, the cost of any EBT or food stamp benefits from the federal government, government that we know specifically would only go to the citizen children of undocumented immigrants. They attribute those all to the undocumented immigrants. But I feel like, even if we accept that incredibly outrageous claim by the House Republicans, still
I agree with
they would be granting more into the economy than taking away, because we would also have to consider that $88 billion per year cost of the cost of the deportation, as well as the overall contribution to the GDP. You know what I mean? So let's just take that most liberal estimate from the conservatives of $155 billion per year, and that is still yet being beat if we were to remove every dollar they pay in taxes and add on the cost of annual deportation. And we're not even having a conversation about the GDP contributions.
I think we'd have more to agree on illegal immigration than you would be surprised. So I'm agreeing with what you're saying on that. And
right. But I guess like the fallout of this claim would just be that mass deportation is really bad for the economy. And I guess when we isolate for that, this is a huge, this is a huge con of the Trump administration as it relates to furthering the American economy. And I mean, when we look at other things, such as, you're an educated guy, you've probably looked at this, what the CBPP says about the outcomes of the BBB effectively reducing the after-tax income for 80% of Americans, and the rebounding effects of the now 55% tariff that we have on China ultimately being taken up by the American consumer, which is yet another regressive tax that hurts you more the less money you make. We see a massive redistribution of wealth from the poor to the rich, which reduces consumer confidence. That's why consumer confidence is at an incredibly low point right now. It reduces the overall productivity of the consumer base because it's the average American that's being hurt the most. And then compile that with mass deportation, which we've already agreed is a total net loss for the American economy. I just don't think that we're having a picture painted of an economic genius that's going to send America into the golden age.
Okay. Wanted to address one point on that. I tend to agree with you on certain aspects, but not all of the aspects. One of the things about tariffs that I think is underutilized is the anticipation of AI really resetting the global landscape and how we work in general. And we saw in CV19 the displacement of the supply chains by not having a lot of the manufacturing industrial base here. I get the point that we don't have the ability to replace that with the current workforce that we have, especially with mass deportation. But what I'm seeing the trend coming is an AI and robotic revolution where those jobs are going to be needed to be onshored here from a strategic United States perspective of leading in that area and not relying on other countries for essential goods. And then hopefully those means of production will be taxed, and then we could put in place a universal basic income. Those were a lot of claims, so I'll stop right there.
Well, first, about the AI revolution, I'm not going to be sympathetic to it until we have damning evidence to show it, right? Like, I don't know. We heard the crypto bros say the same thing about, like, decentralized, like, DeFi currency. We're going to have the crypto revolution. It's going to revolutionize the way that we buy and exchange goods and commodities. It never happened. You know what I mean? Same thing about AI. I mean, I think it's worthwhile to invest in AI, but I think claiming that we're going to have this AI revolution is, we definitely don't have enough evidence to believe that. I'd say that's probably a less reliable claim than any claim that even conservatives make about the expenditure on undocumented immigrants. So if you don't even look at the claims about expenditure on undocumented immigrants for that reason, we also probably shouldn't be holding to the hard conclusion about this AI revolution. But then about onshoring more jobs, well, I mean, hey man, specifically tariffs on China, for whatever reason, don't really seem to onshore many jobs. I mean, just look at, what his tariffs on China in 2017 led to. We actually saw more jobs offshored under Trump's first term with the tariffs on China than we did see under the Biden-Harris administration with some of their policy that was directed to subsidizing manufacturers, such as the Chips and Science Act. So, I mean, I think for that reason, we should be more focused on investment in American industries than tariffing the hell out of people across the globe, because not only does it lead to worse outcomes for the economy, but it also leads to that regressive tax on you the less money you make. And I mean, if you want to see what the anticipation of those tariffs led to for investment in American industries, I just recommend going on Fred and typing in private fixed investment in American
the Fred, St. Louis, and the manufacturing, and it's stagnant after. I'll give you that. But it's an influx of cash that's artificially propping it up. That's unsustainable over the long period of time. So where we, I think, it feels. I think we,
What do you mean
I
by
think
that? Can we
where
examine
I
that real
think
quick? What do
where
you mean by that?
I think where we philosophically differ is that government investment will directly lead to an outcome where I'm going to sit in and saying by lowering taxes and other things and deregulating policy will lead to GDP growth, which overall shrinks.
I
So I think
was
that's where we
evaluating merely.
philosophical differ.
I wasn't evaluating government investment. I was evaluating private investment. And then
Well,
you
you
said,
referenced the CHIP Act.
oh, for sure. But in my claim about the stagnation in investment in American manufacturing, I was specifically referencing private investment.
And then how did the Biden and Harris administration enable, through robust regulatory environment that they implemented, a boom in private investment toward manufacturing?
I would be happy to go over that point with you after you could respond to the original reason why I brought this point up related to the anticipation of his tariffs causing the stagnation.
The tariffs causing stagnation
Yeah,
on
stagnation
the
in
initial.
investment in private investment in American manufacturing.
No, I agree with you on that point.
Okay,
I
great.
believe that the policy was poor in that instance. I think that Trump's whole idea around tariffs has definitely flaws, especially with a blanket of tariffs. I think we could be very more targeted. I will disagree with you on the fact that AI isn't going to be a technological revolution. I mean, look at, I know you probably have an opinion of David Sachs, the AI czar, but I think he's a pretty smart individual, or Mark Andreessen, or things the Silicon bros, as you said, are saying here. But we're already seeing it with Waymo. We're seeing it being replaced in Amazon factories. Good jobs are being replaced by robotics. You can't say that it's not going to be a disruptor in the overall job market for the United States, especially with uneducated people.
I don't understand how this relates to your original claim that you support Donald Trump's 55% tariff on China. And then also keep in mind, we're probably rearing the end of our conversation. I've been live for an hour and I've spent most of that hour talking to you.
Yeah.
And I like to try to keep my conversations to like a meeting of around 30 minutes. But this has been a good one, so I've let you stay up for longer. But if you want to finish out that point, I don't understand how this relates to why you'd support Trump's tariffs on China. But honestly, in that last breath there, you said that you actually don't support. I mean,
I thought the 2017. I did not support it in 2017. I support tariffs by.
So why didn't you support tariffs
on
China in 2017, but you do now?
The AI landscape has very much changed.
Why would the AI landscape be like this pivotal marker of why you would or wouldn't support the tariffs on China?
To steer private investment, to not have those facilities overseas and put them in the United States.
Private investment. I thought that we agreed that his tariffs stagnated private investment.
Before the AI and robotic revolution, the people wouldn't put manufacturing jobs here if they had no workforce to serve them.
So I thought that we just agreed that those tariffs stagnated private investment, and now you're saying that you support them because they steer private investment. Less than 45 seconds after you agreed with me that they stagnated it. I don't understand this.
Dean, I don't think you are hearing me. So what I'm saying is, when you put it in 2017, it was pre-AI and robotics revolution. It was starting, but it's not as advanced as it is now. We didn't have as much as an understanding of it. So if I'm a private investor and I'm looking at the tariff situation, I still was going to pay the tax because of the cheaper labor abroad, and I didn't have a workforce to fill those jobs in the United States. Now that AI and robotics are changing that landscape and implementing tariffs, I am going to look about private investment and putting manufacturing jobs here and utilize robotics and artificial intelligence.
The tariffs
for
today,
robotics.
The tariffs today stagnated investment, private investment. That's the point that I made earlier.
Oh, from the Fed, it's pretty early. I mean, even Jerome Powell comes up yesterday and says that the total impact of tariffs has not been seen, positive or negative. That's why he hasn't cut interest rates yet. So the Fed report on it's not. It's true in the fact, but there's not enough time yet to play that out.
Okay, well, if you're saying that there's not enough time to play it out, insofar as me making the claim that they've stagnated investment in American manufacturing, even though we already have a financial quarter of our belt where it went stagnant after 3 years of consistent growth, then you definitely have no basis to make the claim that it will steer more investment into private manufacturing, meaning that we should probably both hold suspended judgment or agnosticism on the point. And because we should both hold suspended judgment or agnosticism on the point, all that this means is that you can't debate the point.
because we both have to hold suspension on the judgment means that I'm wrong. That's where I'll disagree with you. I'll agree with you
It does.
on
It does.
we can
It does. Yes,
suspend.
it does. It
It
does. It does mean
does.
that you're wrong.
It-
That's the reason that
Okay.
the reason it makes you wrong is because given that we both have to hold suspended judgment, this would make the logical implication that therefore we can't hold a judgment. And it is a judgment to say that they will steer more private investment. And because the original claim that we'd have to remain agnostic on the point would make that logical implication that we can't make a judgment, you can't say that they will drive more private investment.
Well, we can agree to disagree on that point, and I know that
Come on,
you're
that's
wanting
unfair.
to move on to
Okay, I do
another
want to.
guest.
I do want to move on, but before I move on, I think that's unfair
Yeah.
because you specifically told me that I can't make a long-term judgment. So why can you?
I'm agreeing with you. I think that we should both hold off judgment to see. I agreed with you on the 2017. I made the decision that I believe that tariffs are necessary because of an AI robotic revolution. I'm projecting in the future. You told me to hold off judgment on that, and I'm agreeing with you.
Okay, so then you don't have an argument that they will be good in the long term. Okay, sounds good, man. Well, how about this, Richard? I appreciate you for coming up. Thank you for the good conversation.
Well, I'll wrap it up with this, Dean. I think this was a very productive conversation. I believe that there's more in common with some level-headed people in my party that you can have. So I just want to thank you. I do learn a lot from you, so I appreciate you.
No, man, I appreciate you for the conversation too. I like the level-headed conversation with people that have done a little bit more research than the average Trump supporter. They're always fun.
Absolutely. Have a good day.
Take care. All right, we're gonna move on to the next guest, everybody. We just had it was a pretty in-depth conversation that got a little bit more in depth than most conversations. Let's go and get that next guest. We got Oliver loading up in everyone. I really hope that there's more in-depth conversations show you guys that I don't just hold like that surface level knowledge to get the quick dunks on the average Trump supporter. That's another reason why I like that because God, I see it all the time. People saying that, oh, Dean isn't actually smart. He's a pseudo intellectual that doesn't know anything. I hope conversations like that could refute that claim. What is going on, Oliver? Do you support Trump?
Yeah.
Oh, that is going to be a child, so we got to go ahead and kick them out. We got to kick the kid out. Oh my gosh, yo! Christian, thank you so much for the $100 over on PayPal. This was 27 minutes ago. I really hope that you're still in here. Thank you so much for the love, Christian. Thank you. Christian has explicitly asked me not to read out his message, so I will not. But guys, let's get at least 1,000 Christian W's down below in those live chats literally right the hell now, as well as Susan with a $10 40 minutes ago saying thank you for being a voice of reason and truth. I really appreciate you for that love, Susan. Thank you so much. Show some love to Christian down below, and please also show some love to Susan. You guys are awesome. So everybody, we are going to go ahead and do a little quick restart on the stream. And for those of you that are curious why we're not on our main account, but rather on this DNC Dean account, it's because we got a weak ban on the main account. Why? Well, I couldn't tell you why. It is what it is, and that all that means is that we'll be on here for the next 7 days. But honestly, with this account, it looks like we got to give it a little bit of an extra push to get it sending out so we could, get more people in here. So here's what I'm going to have y'all do. I'm going to end the live, and when I do in the live, feel free to just click on the profile picture that'll pop up in the middle of your phone screen. You'll be directed to my account. Then you just pull down in 10 seconds, refresh, and I'll be right back on live. And the moment that every single one of you guys get back in here, if you guys could spam the likes, spam the shares, and spam the comment section, that will be awesome. It will really help this stream send out more. And it'll allow us to get more and more debates, and it'll lead to a really productive day. So I will see you all in less than 15 seconds. Everybody, the restart will be incredibly quick. Keep in mind that this will not be a restart that impacts the YouTube stream, only the TikTok stream. But see you guys in a